Have you ever thought about what it takes to become the most feared warrior in the wizarding world? What if I told you that even the good guys can strike terror into the hearts of their enemies? In today's video, you'll find out why Moody was the most legendary aura in the history of magic. Moody is one of the most intimidating figures in Harry Potter, despite fighting by the side of good. A half-mad wizard with paranoia, but also a master duelist and a true war hero. By the time we meet him, he is already a seasoned veteran, scarred, battle-worn, and both feared and ridiculed. Wizards may joke about his paranoia, but they listen when he speaks. Because when it comes to hunting dark wizards, no one does it better. But how did he earn his terrifying reputation? What battles shaped him, and who were the dark forces he fought? Let's dive in. Born in Scotland into a family of pure-blood wizards, Moody was destined for a life of war. His ancestors were auras for generations, hunting dark wizards and sending them to Azkaban. He attended Hogwarts, most likely in Gryffindor, and was a top student. Though little is known about his school years, one thing is certain: he was preparing for a future far more dangerous than ordinary wizarding life. After Hogwarts, he enrolled in aura training. Despite being called courses, this was no simple education. The training lasted 3 grueling years, covering combat spells, stealth, and intelligence gathering. Auras weren't just warriors, they were spies, strategists, and detectives. Once he completed his training, he joined the Ministry of Magic's Aura office. But his real test was yet to come. Moody was thrown straight into the chaos of the First Wizarding War. Voldemort and his Death Eaters were rising, and the wizarding world was on fire. This was when Moody cemented his reputation. He fought fearlessly, capturing and imprisoning more Death Eaters than anyone else. He lost an eye, a leg, and covered his body in scars, but he never stopped. His enemies feared him, and his allies saw him as a legend. But war changed him. Even after Voldemort fell, Moody never let his guard down. He refused food or drink from anyone else. He saw conspiracies everywhere, and sometimes he was right. Though many in the ministry started dismissing him as a paranoid old soldier, he never stopped hunting. He was the one who captured Igor Karkaroff, a former Death Eater who later betrayed his own kind to save himself. Before Voldemort's return, Moody finally let his guard down. It cost him dearly. Death Eaters ambushed him in the night, imprisoning him while Barty Crouch Jr. stole his identity to infiltrate Hogwarts. When the truth came out, Moody didn't hesitate. He returned to the fight, leading the Order of the Phoenix after Dumbledore's death. He stood on the front lines once more, refusing to give in. But even the greatest warriors fall. During a mission to protect Harry Potter, Voldemort himself struck Moody down with a killing curse. The legendary aura was gone, just like that. Moody wasn't just a fighter. He was a master of non-verbal magic, a dueling expert, and one of the most skilled auras in history. He taught Nymphadora Tonks, another great aura, and captured half the prisoners in Azkaban. Even after his death, his presence lingered. Dolores Umbridge used his magical eye to spy on her office, but Harry later stole it and gave it a proper burial. Moody's paranoia wasn't madness, it was survival. And in the end, he proved that true warriors never stop fighting. Have you ever wondered what it's like to spend your life surrounded by enemies? What if every step you took, every drink you sipped, could be your last? In today's video, you'll find out why Moody was more than just a warrior. He was a survivor in a world where trust could mean death. The scars on Moody's face weren't just trophies of war, they were reminders. Each one had a story, a lesson, a warning. Some wizards took them as signs of weakness, but those who knew better saw them for what they were, proof that Moody had walked through fire and survived. He had seen horrors most wouldn't dare imagine. He had stood face to face with some of the darkest minds in history, and somehow he had always come out alive.
Moody didn't just fight Death Eaters. He studied them, hunted them, understood them in ways others never could. He knew how they thought. He knew their tricks. He knew the way darkness moved through the world, creeping into places it had no business being.
It was why he was so paranoid. Not because he was scared, but because he knew better than anyone. Fear kept you alive. Even in the years after the First Wizarding War, when most wizards let their guard down, Moody never did. He kept one eye, literally, on the shadows, waiting for the moment darkness would return. And it did. When Voldemort came back, Moody knew the fight would be different this time. The First War had been about survival. The Second War was about something else. It was about legacy. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the next generation. That was why he took Harry under his wing, warning him, preparing him, making sure he knew what real war looked like. Moody knew what happened to people who weren't ready. He had seen too many die, too many good wizards, too many promising young fighters who thought courage was enough to win a war. Courage wasn't enough. You needed skill, you needed instinct, you needed to think 3 steps ahead, or you'd be dead before you hit the ground. Moody had a saying: constant vigilance. He said it so often that people mocked him for it. But he didn't care, because it was the only thing that kept him alive. And then, when the final battle came, it wasn't enough. The night Moody died was supposed to be a victory. The Order had a plan. They were going to move Harry. They had decoys, protections, safeguards. But Moody knew plans had a way of falling apart. And when Voldemort himself came after them, there was nothing even he could do. Some say he never saw the curse coming. Some say he did, and there was simply no time to react. Either way, in a flash of green light, the greatest aura in history was gone. It wasn't a fair fight. It wasn't an epic duel. It was over in a heartbeat. And that was the cruelest part of all. Moody had spent his life preparing for battle, outsmarting enemies, training himself to see danger before it struck. And in the end, it didn't matter. Even the best could fall. His death shook the Order. It shook Harry. It shook everyone who had ever known him. Because if Moody wasn't safe, who was? For days they searched for his body. There was nothing to bury. Only his shattered staff and the knowledge that a legend had been taken too soon. But Moody wasn't the kind of man who needed statues or memorials. His legacy lived in the people he had trained. In Tonks, in Kingsley Shacklebolt, in every young wizard who had ever heard his voice in their head, whispering constant vigilance.
Even in death, his fight wasn't over.
Dolores Umbridge stole his magical eye, using it to spy on her own workers at the Ministry. It was a mockery of everything Moody had stood for. But Harry saw it. He knew Moody deserved better. And so, in the midst of war, he broke into Umbridge's office, took the eye, and gave it the burial it deserved.
It wasn't much, but it was something. Moody's life was proof that heroism wasn't about glory. It wasn't about fame. It was about doing the hard things, the dirty things, the things no one else wanted to do. It was about sacrifice, about never backing down.
He never got to see the end of the war. He never got to see Voldemort fall. But in a way, it didn't matter, because Moody